Beginning today, your committee will consider two options for operating the state's $400 million liquor business. Governor LePage has put forth his plan, and I am now introducing my plan. I want to be clear. We may disagree on our approaches, but I agree with the governor. Democrats agree with the governor. We must pay our bills and pay back hospitals. We can do that this session, and we must. I also agree with the governor's urgency. Now is the time to pay our hospitals, and our liquor business provides us the funds to do just that. But we must get the liquor contract right. We cannot rush to judgment as was done in 2003. By getting the liquor contract right, we will ensure timely payment to our hospitals. Prior to 2003, the state operated the liquor business, and by all accounts, it was underperforming. Complaints about service, delivery, product selection were endless. And ongoing conversations in the legislature occurred annually about privatizing the business. When the contract went out to bid, the value of the business was not well known. It was negotiated under pressure to fill a budgetary hole, and as a result, we did not capture the appropriate value for our asset, an asset owned by the people of the state of Maine. Today, we know the value of the business. Since then, the business has significantly increased in value. The number of agency stores have nearly doubled, and complaints are nearly non-existent. To be clear, as a Democrat, I believe strongly that there are many things that state government does better than the private sector, and more appropriately. But in this instance, history proves otherwise. My proposal unequivocally keeps the management and operation of the state's wholesale liquor business in the private sector with the experts. It eliminates all financial risk to the taxpayer and incentivizes the private sector to partner with the state to grow the business. The governor plans takes back operation of the liquor business, including the financial risk, in my opinion, while retaining the right to issue service contracts to administer the business. The differences are stark. The goals are hopefully the same, and it's now up to you and all of us to get it right. The specifics of my proposal, and I would encourage you to have both my bill as presented originally through the reviser's office, along with the amendment that I proposed today, so you can follow along. Despite the amendment being multiple pages, it's very straightforward and it's very simple. And I will talk about those sections as I go through it, Mr. Chairman. First, it retains the business within the private sector, eliminating all risk to the state without adding any potential costs or positions to state government by issuing a new RFP on a strict timeline to have a contract awarded by July 15, 2013, this summer. And as a result, repaying the hospitals by September 30th of this year, a date certain. Second, it mandates an open and transparent RFP bidding process that will ensure the best value bidder is qualified with the necessary financial, technical, management, operational, and marketing capacity, amongst other qualifications. The qualifications ensure service optimization and provide security to the state and its taxpayers, because they will know that their asset, a $400 million asset, will be run with the experience and knowledge and the wherewithal how to perform. This is a very common bidding process, accepted by the business community. Today, my brother runs a company that he and I started as teenagers. When he goes out and bids on municipal snowplow contracts, towns have similar, rigorous requirements, obviously scaled down, in order to ensure the contractor can perform. In fact, they often require site visits to inspect his equipment and require financial assurances to minimize their risk. They want to make sure he can perform. Trust me, he's not bidding on $400 million contracts. But I would hate to think bidding qualifications to plow snow would be more rigorous than those for our state's $400 million business. I have met all of the bidders that are public today. In my opinion, and I want to be clear, I think everyone is qualified. I think everyone can run the business well for the state of Maine. They are impressive individuals. They have many skills, many partners, and I believe they're in it for the best interest of the state, while at the same time operating their business in order to acquire a profit. They all know the current value of the business, because all that data is almost all public. And because of this, pencils will be sharpened, bids should be closed, and as a result, the state will receive the right and best value for our business. Third, my proposal provides two options on how to bid, either through one upfront payment or multiple upfront payments, all to be acquired by the state within the biennium. Both with additional annual payments growing over the length of the 10-year contract, along with sharing revenue with the state as the business grows. It is a partnership. Specifically, my amendment allows a bidder to choose between an initial payment of either $200 million to be paid no later than June 30th, 2014, or payments totaling $200 million to be paid no later than June 30th, 2015, with $100 million being paid for June 30th, 2014. Bidders will still be required to specify the amount of the guaranteed fixed annual payment, the formula for revenue sharing with the state during the life of contract, and the minimum profit margin, which they will define in order to be guaranteed to make their bid feasible. Fourth, and much to the understanding of many, this proposal allows prices to be lowered in order to compete with New Hampshire. But they must be lowered with respect to the structure of the contract awarded to the private business. Maine is a control state. We set the prices. We should not be allowed to lower prices below a level that undermines the terms of the deal for which we just signed on a dotted line and shook hands with our partner. Fifth, this bill corrects a long-standing inequity with our retail partners, the agency liquor stores, both in terms of price and hopefully in regards to return of products. For too many years, agency liquor stores have received an inequitable return for their role as our partner. Floor space in stores is valuable. Return on investment is important to them. Just like with lottery sales, our partners do not receive fair and equitable compensation for running the system that we own. It lacks a proper incentive to help our overall business grow. And my bill makes this much needed course correction. My bill will raise an additional $6.1 million for our 480 liquor agents. It is not a promise, nor a commitment to fix and rulemaking. It will be the law. If adopted, it is a statutory and immediate legal commitment to the state. The governor's proposal guarantees no return, but to their credit, his administration has stated, and it's my understanding is working with certain liquor agents to address this through rulemaking. I've served on this committee before, and whether it is in this committee or in other committees across the legislature, we often hear about rulemaking and fixing things in the future. I have visited many liquor agency stores, whether as a consumer, whether in my travels seeking other products, or whether to speak specifically with these agents. It is time to fix this inequity, and we shouldn't trust rulemaking or future legislature to get it right. Now is the time. 6, this bill creates a contingency for our state, liquor stores and consumers. Too often our state has failed at properly administering RFP processes, and as a result potentially jeopardized service as well as millions of dollars. And it's currently the case with the lottery services contract, which is costing the state millions and millions due to the challenges. This has plagued many administrations. If the state is unable to get a new contract in place by July 1, 2014, only after a public hearing to make sure it is transparent and a finding by the Commissioner of the Department of Administrative and Financial Services, he or she, after they have received a fair value of not less than $34 million, can extend the contract for only 1 year. A newspaper recently called this idea scary. I call it prudent planning. 7, my bill as amended appropriates $100,000 annually to the Department of Substance Abuse to help reduce underage drinking by funding the Enforcing the Underage Drinking Law Program, often referred as UDL. This program provides grants to agencies to lower underage drinking and increase enforcement to help eliminate the sale of alcohol to minors. I did not include language in my bill to further address enforcement. However, this committee needs to take on this issue. Now is the time. And that also applies to tackling substance abuse. The sale of liquor and substance abuse are directly connected, and as a control state, we must acknowledge the impacts pricing have on consumption. You've recently spoke about this in this committee with Director Reed. In fact, our Director, Jerry Reed, to his credit, acknowledged that this fact in a recent presentation for you, and I quote, "Controlled jurisdictions are able to serve their citizens with a broader and more flexible range of policy options for promoting moderation in the consumption of alcohol beverages and minimizing incentives for predatory pricing that can and have led to alcohol abuse." I appreciate those comments. Those must be and should be always part of this conversation. Lastly, we, as Democrats, Independents, Republicans, the governor, must use the upfront revenue we receive from the liquor contract to repay the hospitals. The Senate President and the Speaker of the House stated that this morning to the public in a press conference. But we also must consider paying this off and moving forward on reform at the same time. If you as a committee and we as a legislature do this right, our outstanding bills to main hospitals will be repaid by September 30th of this year under the watch of this legislature and this governor. Now is the time. We must put this debt behind us so that we can work together with the hospitals on reform, focus on improving and lowering the cost of health care rather than working to pay off an old debt. This proposal guarantees payment to the hospitals without borrowing debt. And it won't borrow to pay off another debt. It avoids any constitutional uncertainty. It makes payment no later than September 30th, and as a result, saves $5 million on our reimbursement in comparison to the governor's plan, as well as saving over $40 million in interest costs, which would be accrued through the governor's plan of borrowing. It is a straightforward plan with zero risk to the taxpayer, no borrowing from Wall Street. It is fiscally responsible and sure way to pay back our hospitals. In my opinion, the governor's plan is risky. Constitutional questions remain unanswered. There's no timeline, and it costs nearly $45 million more than our plan as a result of interest and fees borrowing and not paying off the debt before October 1st of this year. Earlier, members of this committee asked the governor about the date and terms of which he seeks to pay off hospitals. I commend him for saying he wants to pay it off in 45 days. So do I, so do Democrats, and I believe almost the entire legislature. But I go forward based on the proposal that has been presented. And the proposal that has been presented keeps quoting a $186 million number that is owing to the hospitals. That is the money that is owing on October 1, 2014. The amount owing on October 1, 2013, this year, is $180 million. Let's save that $5 million. This proposal gets the job done without question and with certainty. Lastly, I would encourage this committee to think long and hard about funding other priorities in the state, with the annual payments that will still be available after any upfront payment. Personally, and I've shared this with Senator Flood, I support long-term efforts to fund water and sewer, roads and bridges, and his efforts. I personally believe that these needs need to be funded. But we also have to consider other priorities, such as education and healthcare. After we pay the hospitals, I believe we have the opportunity to support Senator Flood's efforts, along with making his investments in education and healthcare. This opportunity comes around once in every 10 years, and we must get the liquor contract right first so that we can pay and make investments in our future and pay the hospitals. This isn't about one party or one campaign. It's about getting it right and doing our job. It's about working with the government together so we can get the job done. Mr. Chairman, I'd be pleased to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Well, I have one. What are the risks under your proposal?
Mr. Chairman, I would argue that the risks financially to the state are minimal. The private sector is going to shoulder all of the risk, just as they do today. In addition to that, my proposal saves us millions of dollars in interest costs, which is definitely a risk to the taxpayer.
Already gets Mr. Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Goodall. I have two questions. I would say they're quick, but I doubt that that's the case. So I have concerns with Section 8 C on page 5 of your bill, and I don't see that it has been removed, and it appears to be under your 6th section of your bill. Essentially, it's about the extension of the contract. Section C talks about the award, what would happen if the award of the contract has been delayed beyond the time when it can be issued in a timely fashion due to administrative or judicial appeals. So essentially, if anybody holds a lawsuit, the current contract would be able to move forward. Am I right?
That is correct.
Okay, if I were the newspapers, I would agree with them on that, because what it basically means is that if I were in the shoes of the current contract holder, I would essentially ask someone to file a lawsuit to slow down the process, and then by default, you would be given an opportunity. I granted you there's a process that you include here, but you'd be granted an opportunity to be able to continue moving that forward. So regardless of how we move forward, I would want to make sure that that would not be part of the final proposal.
Representative Russell, with all due
Everybody
respect,
seems to forget my name today.
with all due respect, the greater risk is having the current contract stay in place for the value that we're receiving today. That value is significantly lower than 34 million. And my bill specifically states not less than 34 million. It does not prevent the commissioner from negotiating and getting the fair value. But what would be the total cost to the state if the contract failed, service was not reliable and continued? Much greater.
Potentially, but under this one, you're still hoping that the current contract holder would continue to work with you if you then renegotiated. So either way, you're still in definite
I couldn't
position.
disagree with you more.
Okay, please explain.
My bill, this is a prudent planning mechanism in light of the recent actions of many administrations about failing to properly administer an RFP, ultimately heading to litigation. I have a two-part approach. One, define in law to make sure we have qualified bidders. The RFP holds up the legal scrutiny. Frivolous appeals are often easily dismissed.
Okay.
I have a year to get that done. I'm a lawyer. I often appear in courts. A year is an adequate time. And I believe, in light of the overall cost to the state, an opportunity for the city, as well as the hospitals, the judicial branch would be expeditious in moving this case through. Now, the notion that, as is the case with the lottery service contract, if that RFP would have had this clause, we as a state wouldn't be losing millions and millions. Now,
Is there an automatic renewal clause if there is no, I mean, it does.
I believe, and I defer to the proper legal analyzation of this, by someone may come behind me, or future, if you get the question answered through your analyst, the current contract stays in place.
Okay. That answers my question.
But nevertheless, I believe this contract has to go out to bid. And if for any reason it needed to be extended, that it be done in an open and transparent way with a hearing and receiving not less than 34 million. I would hope the commissioner could negotiate a higher price.
Right, okay. Yeah,
Follow up.
I'm actually good, thank you.
Ms. Oster.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Goodall, for bringing this legislation forward, so we have additional things to think about when we're talking about this contract. But I do have a real concern about the upfront payment of $200 million. Would you not think that by asking for such a large upfront payment, that maybe some smaller companies trying to compete for this contract would be pushed out of the bidding process?
Well, first, Representative, thank you for the question, and I will back up just a hair. Because I said it earlier, every bidder to date that is public, and I've met with every one of them, multiple times, I believe has the capability and the financial capacity and the wherewithal to finance and or have cash reserves on hand to pay for such an upfront payment. This is a $400 million business. If someone doesn't have the ability to get financing on a very dependable revenue stream, shouldn't we question whether or not that entity has the overall financial capacity to operate the business? And in light of that, in recognition of the Democrats and Republicans' unified vision, along with the governor, as was announced this morning, we need to now also go forward with the conversation about paying our hospitals and doing it as fast as possible. When you look at the entire state budgetary picture and the need to pay this bill, cash is king in many business negotiations. And in this situation, it will allow us to pay the bill, move forward, and work on other matters. There's always a cost of money, and so does the governor have a cost of his, at a clip of greater than $40 million.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The other thing that I was looking at was, in your bill, you talk about a lot of different things that we would be able to do, but you don't talk about liquor enforcement much. In previous testimony in this committee, we've been told that we only have 4 liquor inspectors in the state, and we're losing a pile of money for liquor being bought in New Hampshire, and from just lost revenue because they don't know where the liquor went. I would think a contract this large, that we could find $1 million of all this money that we're going to come up with to hire liquor enforcement to do the job that is so sorely needed in our state. We do now allow local police officers and law enforcement to go in and spot check, but they're not doing the job. It's a job that is, well, if I have time, I'll go in, but it's not. They're not dedicated to the enforcement of liquor. And I truly believe that we need to amend your bill to allow liquor enforcement and to fund it. I think every county should have a liquor enforcement officer. What's your thoughts?
I agree, Representative. And this has been quite a long, strange, and interesting trip since I introduced this bill a few weeks ago, to be honest. And the last thing that I would want to do is throw poorly drafted legislation amendments and that hastily putting something in front of this committee. In my remarks, I stated that this committee must tackle enforcement. I've had long conversations with Representative Carey, who obviously used to sit on this committee from which I served. He is an advocate, passionate about this issue. He too quotes the $1 million number. I think this committee should seriously look at this. Take a serious look at this. I think we have to get enforcement, because it will, through deterrence as well as through actual enforcement and fines, lower the amount of sales being purchased in New Hampshire that should be purchased in Maine. But in addition to that, I did have in my bill an enforcement mechanism looking at the ULID program. Currently, that program is funded through the Substance Abuse Office, which is a pass-through federal dollars and other grant dollars, which then are administered out to agencies and primarily the Sheriff's Association for doing spot checks. The Sheriff's Association has some very powerful data at finding